not usually done by the township. Not to say it couldn't be, but y'all join in here now. You're on your own.
Everything you're saying is correct, and you know, it could be a massive project that's going to take years of study based on the comprehensive plan, sitting down, figuring out, brainstorming with ideas, possibly getting developers involved, or it's going to be a private road that remains private, and the folks that live on their own property on it are going to be responsible for repairing it and keeping it up to snuff so at least emergency vehicles can get access. So it could be a small time project, or it can be a much larger scale. Everything you're saying is correct. I don't think any final decisions have been made along those lines, except it's in bad shape now, even though it's a little better. But it needs attention, and bringing it up to township standards at this point doesn't sound like something that the Board of Supervisors is contemplating in the short term. And therefore, if it's going to be improved and paved so that it is accessible to emergency vehicles, postal workers, and everyone who lives there, including trucks, etc., you know, here's an estimate. Obviously, it's the lower portion of each of these pages is the estimate, and you know, $678,000 is not chump change.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So,
Just one question for the solicitor, though. In order to do it as a private road, wouldn't you need to create an owners association and have legal documents agreed to among all of them?
it would behoove you to do that. I would suggest it, but in that you were not formed by one developer who started an association and had representatives come on the board as properties were developed, you've got to start from scratch in that regard. Do you have to? No. You can sign an agreement that says, based on linear feet, the owners of the properties along Ways Lane will contribute that percentage, and everybody signs it, and you go out and do it, and everybody pays what they're supposed to pay. You don't need an association, but, you know, again, we heard about a potential for a 501c3 to be set up. That may help you get grant money. That may allow you to tap some sources of funding that would not be available to, as Scudder said, an unincorporated group of owners. So, do you have to form an association? No, but it might be a step that you might consider toward opening your horizons to financing.
Did I see another hand over here?
I was going to say that we've heard that the library may move at the entrance to Ways Lane, so that will bring sewer in at the entrance and water. Because it does run right out on, well, it's across the street actually on Old Baltimore Pike. So it will come over and go right into where the Ways Lane property stops. I mean, where the library property stops.
And I assume, Lisa, that when that, if that is a development that comes in with plans, et cetera, that we would require them to improve the road that they front on.
Right, but that's the area that is improved.
Oh, that's the area, okay.
But yes, they would have to do
That
that.
shows my lack of,
They're right at the entrance.
okay, okay.
And even that's a number of years away.
Right.
So
Right.
they've tried to move once before, I believe.
Now, I don't know if the residents on Ways Lane want to try the option with the concrete company again or not, because you guys are so close. And, you know, like I said last time, you know, we'd be willing to help to organize everybody if you wanted to try that again, because I don't know what the costs they came up with at that time. I wasn't aware what that would be for people.
I think Louis mentioned it at the last meeting we had.
He said what his portion was going to be, but I don't know what the whole,
I think the Italian American Club was around 7,000, and then it just broke down in property to property.
yeah.
You know, and I don't know what the total came up with. I thought he came up with a total amount, but we're missing one property owner. So, but,
Is Lou here tonight?
No.
no.
I mean, at the last meeting, he said something like, if the township spearheads,
That's what I'm talking about, that's
hit
what.
90% of the owners would follow suit.
But just, you know,
I'm not
just
sure
like
what
tonight, I
spearheading
invited
is.
everybody. Well, when we talked about it last time, what we were talking about as spearheading is that we would be willing to get everybody together, try to get everybody to agree, just like you did with the concrete company, and try to help facilitate getting it done. You know, tonight we invited everybody and they didn't all show up.
Are you going to send a letter out?
Well, it depends what everybody wants on Ways Lane, what you want us to do.
You can send a
I'm
letter
willing
out.
to help, you know, I'm willing to help, but like I said, I sent out a letter for tonight, but not everybody showed up.
Did 100% of the people on the lower portion agree? I mean,
Yes.
that's, again, in my mind, that's the biggest problem. If you can get those residents to fix the lower portion, that's really where the biggest problem is.
Well, I'm here representing the Italian American Club, but I'm going to switch gears on you. I'm also a volunteer firefighter with Kennett for 32 years, okay? I think the major concern now, I feel sorry for these residents that are down there and we can't get there. You know, we got a brand new tanker, hate to see us go down there and crack the tank on it. Now we're looking at human lives at risk. I think the township needs to come up with some kind of grant and get this taken care of. That's my opinion. You're not going to get you're going to get that one person that's going to back out on us again. I guarantee it.
Not one person still owns the property.
But, is that one person down on the portion he was just talking about? or
No,
near-
it's right next to us.
Okay. But that's the area that's in good shape, right?
Yeah, it starts to deteriorate as soon as you go past, because his equipment's one that's really damaging the front entrance from Baltimore Park.
Well, then, I don't know if the supervisors want to do this, but like Dave said last time, you know, I don't know if there's any options that supervisors can do to force that person to contribute. I don't know.
The township is not going to be awarded grant money for work being done to a private road. That's the, I don't know if catch-22 is the right word, but that's what we're up against with that option. To, you know, when you say, well, I think that you guys should go get a grant and get it done from the fire company's perspective. Yeah, I hear you, but if you can't get a grant, you can't get, grants aren't available for private roads. So the township's option.
Why was it ever brought up then about getting the grant?
I don't know that the board brought it up. I think that the residents brought it up. And they asked about it.
Okay.
But, you know, again, if the township decided that, you know, it wanted to take this over and make it a public road to township standards, you're looking at $1.8 million almost. You know, I don't hear this board giving any signals that it is of the opinion that it wants to do that at this point.
I just wanted to comment that in a perfect world, this getting done would be with someone coming in wanting to put a development in there and the township partnering with them with some kind of a benefit of putting the road or portion of it.
Yes.
They would contribute, maybe the residents would still contribute, I don't know, but
But that would mean the developer taking the, I mean, everybody owns their property out there.
Yeah, that's my thought, Bob, and that is, there's 18, 20, whatever it is, separate properties
yeah.
that front this road that, you know, bends. You're talking about a developer, is that developer going to buy out all 20 properties with operating businesses on them, with ongoing concerns on them, with clubs who want to stay, with, you know, fungi folks, and you name it. You know, I'm just saying, I don't, you know, unless everybody wants to get out and, you know, make a deal, that's the only way that's going to happen.
Well, one thing that probably has not been communicated to this group is the activities of the Route 1 corridor initiative that's under the auspices of the Economic Development Corporation, or whatever they're called, of Chester County, Gary Smith's group. And if they knew that property owners were interested in selling, moving, or whatever, cooperating with, and or remaining, like your club is so close to the road it wouldn't be involved, we could actively be looking for that developer, literally putting a for sale sign up there. Maybe it would be, you know, informally done, because we don't want to raise any red flags either of it. But we have companies that have been going up and down Route 1 looking for a place to be. And the number one problem with Ways Lane is this. So if we could move this, and I'm not saying it should be done, what I was thinking is that I hate to see the residents fork over this kind of money only to have 2-3 years later this so-called knight, you know, come in and do this, and then all of a sudden all your money was really a waste. Coordination is the key that this group is trying to facilitate.
In theory, what you say is phenomenal, and I think this board would probably
we're
be
talking,
thrilled.
We're talking to every municipality within the bandwidth of Route 1 bypass, primarily, which this qualifies for, and the railroad. I think you're aware of this initiative. And what we're already making progress at Lincoln University area. There's going to be a nice technical industrial park put in there. We're making progress all up and down, trying to inventory with each municipality. What do you have? What's your vision? What would be basically a by right type purchase, so that way lower legal fees, engineering, and all that stuff. That's what we're trying to do for the community. And I think this group needs to hear that message, is what I'm saying.
It's a horse and cart situation.
I think
you're saying, boy, it would be so much easier to put up the for sale sign and draw a developer if the road was improved to township standards, and if it's not, you're not going to as easily get that developer.
Well, I don't want to go too far.
But in order to do that, then, you know, this board's got to do something that it would hope that a developer would do. So that's the true catch-22.
I don't expect. What I'm looking at is the committees that are doing this. I think would be happy to put on a presentation in this room for the Ways Lane stakeholders to hear what we're doing. No commitment by anybody. Just hear what we're doing, so they understand that there's a coordinated effort being made to have the Route 1 corridor improved and have tax rateable businesses and organizations come in, unlike some people would argue, and I wasn't here for this, the development of Route 202. We're trying to avoid some of that, whatever happened there. I wasn't here for it, so I don't know the history, but we're trying to avoid difficulties. And usually, if someone comes knocking on their door and they see that this whole group has this kind of organization going, they know that we have our stuff together, I'll say, and they're more willing to look at us versus another area of the country where they might not have their stuff together.
I agree.
So without commitments, I just think this group of stakeholders need to understand what we're trying to do as a volunteer group, just trying to help coordinate things and getting all the municipalities to understand and cooperate to the extent that they choose. And right now, we've been to Kennett Township, one of the first ones we came to, and Ways Lane is, hey, help us here. I mean, that's our number one target. If I don't want to misrepresent what your thoughts, but that's my understanding. Ways Lane is the number one target for quality, tax rateable development. So I think you guys need to know what we're trying to do behind the scenes too. I don't think you knew that until I just said this. So that's why we need to have, I'll coordinate with Lisa and the group to have that kind of a meeting. We might be able to have it within a couple months to, because we are busy talking to other municipalities too. But if that's okay with you, I'd be happy to get that message to the, Scudder is part of the group in some fashion. I forget exactly what you're serving on, but I'm on the one that affects this group. So.
Well, Lisa had made the offer that we would be glad to meet, and I've said that as well. And Bob, your suggestion of bringing these other people in to talk with the unincorporated association of landowners on Ways Lane, I think it's a great idea, and I think it would be a great thing for us to help coordinate that. If there's an interest, if the landowners aren't interested, then let's not waste anybody's time.
Yeah. I mean, that was my point. Bob.
That would be.
You could, I don't know how many Ways Lane individual owners are here. Obviously, it's not even half of them. But you could do a show. Would anybody consider that option? Or does the Italian American Club love where it's located and have absolutely no desire to move, no matter what?
Yeah, I don't think.
If you get one or two that won't move, then
I think what we're trying to do is, even within the 20 property owners, find out, and it might be done privately after the meeting, who's willing to participate in a sale. And if we can look at that and see how it forms, and we're not trying to force anything on anybody. We're just trying to say, right now we're at an impasse. So I'm speaking of Ways Lane. We're at an impasse. No one knows what to do. And it's because no knight in shining armor has come through, and don't hold your breath for that. But if we can facilitate by just communication, I'm sure the committee would be willing to communicate regardless of the interest. Obviously, if there's no interest, go away, like no way, fine, we won't have the meeting. But if the meeting in itself could stimulate some movement of this impasse, and let's say there's 40 acres that are contiguous together that we know are willing to say, hey, got the right offer, we consider it. And the Italian American Club could say, no, we love our spot.
right.
And since we're right on Baltimore Pike, basically, we're not in your way anyway. In fact,
You're going to need contiguous land, obviously.
Yes.
You can't have,
right.
So Bob, let me ask you one thing that might be relevant to some of the things that the homeowners may have with regards to doing a private improvement of the road. So obviously any developer would probably rather have a public road access, but given the state now of the road, if it was sort of paved or repaved and made more passable, and even though it's private, would that still be an attraction to some businesses over what it is now?
No, I think what would have to happen is a significant amount of business or businesses would have to want to be there, and there'd be some coordination through our normal planning process of burdening those developers with fees for this infrastructure improvement as part of it, relieving a lot of the burden that would be to township standards of the other residents, perhaps. Again, without knowing, I'm just speculating what the deal would be. I think everything has to be looked at.
So the type of businesses or things that you would envision really would need the road designed to public standards, the sewer, the water,
I'm sure they would. And they would want the township to take it or own it. Or
well, yeah, obviously at that point.
And I think that...
That was just my question.
Yeah, in order for this to work, it has to be that so-called perfect world. But until we get past this impasse, it's going to be this way for another 10, 20 years. That's what I worry about.
There's
And,
lots of room for creativity.
yeah,
Your suggestion about bringing them in is
Just the
one of
first
the first steps in it. Now, if you have a creative developer that comes in and wants to talk about how to work with the township and work through this, if they're going to come in and make commitments over a period of time, there may be some benefits that we could give that we wouldn't otherwise be inclined
exactly.
to do.
Our number one goal, this consortium, if you will, is to inventory what people want to have done. So when the person that comes looking for where to put something, we can make a match. Meaning that with the least resistance for that organization to get it done. Because we all know what we put organizations through to get something done. And with that in mind, that's the benefit to the developer, is that we've already talked to people. We've already have their thoughts. So that's one major hurdle. Like last night, as you witnessed, what was being proposed brought a lot of residents out who said, I'm not sure I like this. Well, if they could have been inventoried ahead of time and we knew what would work for them, it would have been an easier conversation last night, for instance. That's what I'd like to see achieved, is that we find out from the residents, and again, on a private basis perhaps, and we can do a non-disclosure type agreement with them, who's willing to participate. And that way, perhaps we have something we can have, quote, in inventory for that potential builder. Woe to us if somebody does something that would have been perfect for Ways Lane in Avondale, and we would have been cooperative, and Avondale ends up in court because of not, whatever happens with this stuff, that's all.
Well, we've been talking about the ideas here.
I'm just saying, all we gotta do is have the meeting.
Right.
And I'm
Give us some
willing,
feedback. Are you interested in us continuing with this? Do you want to be a party to this? I'm sorry, Lisa. go
but
ahead.
there's only 4 property owners here. So, maybe we could send out a letter to everybody explaining what Bob's talking about and see who's interested. And if they're not interested in that, if you guys want to go back to the concrete idea, I'd be willing to help, and maybe we could see if we could get that one property owner, I know who it is, see if they'd be willing to work with us. And maybe the township, we could talk to them and see what we could do.
You don't need that one property owner for the southern half.
Yeah.
No, right, they don't. And if they just want to do
Yeah.
the southern half, but
Where does the estimate stop? I'm sorry, Dave Bottom, I'm here representing Caputo, I guess, with Lou's son, Lou Caputo. And where does the estimate stop for the east-west project going east?
Well, that's the lower portion, and it starts, I went from South Walnut Street to where the turn is, the 90-degree turn where it goes uphill. So I stopped about right there at the current turn, the curve there.
And because this is my first time in this discussion, I'm not sure where Bob is it?
Yes.
I don't know what his group is and what they're about, so could somebody fill me in on what he's...
And that would be what the meeting would be about, is to explain to everybody who we are, what our authority is, and what we're trying to
well,
accomplish.
could you give them a
Yeah,
brief, give
tell
them a
them who you
brief
are.
explanation of what you're talking about?
Okay, this is through the, I don't know, I'll butcher, but Gary Smith's organization,
Chester County.
Chester County
Economic Council.
Economic Development Council.
Right.
They're a nonprofit, are they an NDO or NO, what do they call it, NOG, non-government
I'm
organization?
not sure how they're organized.
What they do is they help further economic development for Chester County. One of their, besides Gary Smith, who's the executive director, Bob Gravis, one of his workers, for lack of a better word, one of his cohorts, came to the Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce Government and Public Relations Committee with the idea of coordinating all the municipalities to inventory what they want to have done in this region. It's being supported by Terrence Farrell and the other commissioners. And as far as getting grant money, I don't know if they have a grant type process. They might for this. But all we're doing is talking to each municipality to find out what are they looking for, but primarily in tax rateable. Meaning, what tax rateable means is that it has a positive tax impact on the community, schools, and whatever. So usually it's a light manufacturing or warehousing, distribution type setup. And that's the type of businesses that would just fit like a glove right into Ways Lane. The impasse that we have amongst us is the condition of it and the hurdle for someone to look at that. But that's where the township could consider, with the right tax rateable coming in, doing the math, consider partnering with somebody to help with that. And so the idea would be just to communicate to the Ways Lane stakeholders that we exist, what we're trying to accomplish, and inventory in their own mind, each individually for that matter, if necessary, what they'd be willing to do. And we've got lawyers involved with this, so I'm sure we can easily get a non-disclosure agreement so that property owners don't think that we're going to do anything that will be without their best interests in mind. Is that explained for you, sir?
Yeah, I got a better understanding now.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Can that happen, Bob? I mean, can we, instead of just sort of throwing it out there and saying, hey, that sounds like a great idea?
We can have the meeting and do the explanation, that's no problem. I mean, we're doing it next week to Penn's Township. In fact, I'm glad we're not going to have our comprehensive plan meeting because I can now participate in that one.
Well, why don't I work with you to come up with a letter so that I can explain to all the residents out there?
Yeah, we even have a
What it would
website
be
that
about.
started up, that was done by Deltec. I don't know if it's live or not, but
And then we can send it out to everybody, if the four of you here
Probably the
think that's a good idea.
I don't know what it is offhand. It's almost, I don't know if it's released yet.
And then if we find out that nobody is interested in that, then at that same meeting, we could talk about trying to go back to the other option and see if everybody's willing to do that. Because, I mean, if we had 90% of the people on board, maybe we could get one more on board.
One parting comment on this topic. We're you developers, and all of us developers, we wouldn't build this entire road. We take the area that has the highest development potential, we put a segment of road in that reaches that highest potentiality, and then we would build on some deal that we make with that first guy in or second guy in, and use it to extend the road and have the residents see that something is happening in that first segment. And in my view, that's the segment that's closest to Baltimore Pike,
Right.
Which is the library.
which
Is
is
that
where the library will go.
Library.
Right, yeah, and so, no developer would come in here and build this road and expect everybody to come. I mean, I understand there's a safety issue, and I couldn't agree more about being able to get emergency vehicles to this, but maybe able to do something like that in the short term and without actually doing the improvement to it. I mean, there's no water or fire hydrants down there either. So at some point, water's going to have to come in for a potential user. And it's going to be very difficult to make a deal with somebody when you can't say you're getting public sewer and you're getting public water.
Right.
Unless you can show them that they're going to do that. All the talk in the world and the good intentions in the world are not going to get a guy to sign on the dotted line.
I totally agree.
And I've talked to a lot of the property owners out there, and I haven't heard one say, yes, I'd like to sell my property, but I don't know. I can't see the Italian American Club selling.
We don't even have a prospect for this thing yet. We're just
Right.
talking conceptual.
Right, and I understand that, I just,
However, if we know what's going on, we might be able to find a prospect.
And the fact is, if you don't take the first step, you never get to the end of the journey.
Exactly.
well, maybe we could get that meeting scheduled very soon, because I agree with Steve, it is a major safety issue out there, and, we have done some minor improvements, but they're not going to last long. So if we could get that meeting scheduled as soon as possible, and we'll be prepared at the same meeting to talk about trying to help facilitate getting the concrete company back on board and talking to that other property owner to see what they'd be willing to do.
Yeah, and again, this is our engineer's estimate. That's one source. Obviously, we trust that it's based on actual numbers that are out there and available, and what the costs of these various, for instance, repaving the road, 9 items would be. But that doesn't mean it's the only one, and that doesn't mean it can't come in at less than that.
Speaking from the railroad's perspective, I mean, if you want somebody to go first, let's say, be willing to sell their property for it, we would be happy to do that, to sell that portion of our property that is occupied by Ways Lane to someone who wanted to improve it or whatnot. From our perspective, it really has no benefit to us in having the road there. It's actually a liability. So if we could at least transfer that liability over and facilitate the road with the community, we'd be happy to do that. Obviously, making sure that in some cases the road is unsafely close to the railroad, so we would have to maintain adequate safety clearances. But beyond that, we would certainly be willing to participate in that type of arrangement.
Good.
Okay.
That's very positive. Very positive.
Yep.
So do all of you here the property owners that are here, do you agree with that path forward? Try to get something moving?
Talk is cheap.
It's not, it's worth listening to what this explanation would be from him. I would go along with that. I don't know, I would kind of see doing the east-west portion privately be something maybe we get kicked off, get halfway done privately, and then somehow try to figure out how to get more stuff done.
Well, that's what, at the same time, we can talk about that at the meeting.
I think short term, that would be, I think our goal, long term would be something that he's trying to put together.
Right.
Looking at all the options, you're really hard pressed to make a good decision if you don't know what all the options are. Did you want to say something?
No, Marie.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else on this subject? We're going to follow up on it. And if you want to be anticipating hearing from us, and if you want to talk to your neighbors and sort of let them know what's going on, we'll follow up as well. See if we can't get something moving along here in a timely fashion. We're in full agreement something needs to happen. We want to help you as much as possible. But if we went in and did something and you didn't want us to do it, you'd probably be the first to say you shouldn't be in there doing it. So, I mean, it isn't our property, so we have to do this with some care or have a strong justification why we're taking that assertive role. Is there anything else anybody wants to add to this discussion at this point?
I have a question to ask. Do you have an idea where your right-of-way is along Ways Lane? Do you have a plan that shows, because I know it's not a straight run, it kind of jogs.
It doesn't really jog all that badly. Actually, I think that I pulled a quick screenshot off of Chester County GIS for the meeting here, and I think it's reasonably accurate.
Okay.
We have a map that shows basically from the railroad's view looking outward, so we don't really show everyone else's property lines, and the road is not on our map. I don't think it existed at the time the railroad was built. So, you can measure off the center of the railroad tracks to the edge of our property to determine where the line would be, but it's not illustrated on the maps that we have.
Now, you're right, this is a lot more straight and parallel than I had heard, anyway.
It jogs out a little bit, right where I guess the current approved portion ends, down here by the concrete company. This is the concrete company, no, I'm sorry, right over here. Yeah, so it kind of diagonally goes out from that point, and then we start getting more and more of the road onto our property, and then the majority of it's on our property till you get down to where it turns and goes up the hill. You can.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, then I'm going to, informally I made the announcement that we were having an executive session, and that was the reason why we were delayed in getting down to opening the door. So I just wanted to say it officially during the meeting. We had an executive session, and it was to discuss various personnel issues, and that started at 6 and it concluded at 1 minute of 7. So, I think the next item on the agenda is Granite Ridge Escrow Release Number 2.
You want it?
You can read it, you can read it.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
This is the escrow release number 2 for Granite Ridge Development on McFarland Road. And the recommended release is $734,270.30, which will leave amount remaining $803,640.09.
I move we approve release number 2.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm in favor as well. The motion passes. And then we have Resolution 2014-9, the appointment of Diane Clayton as Code Officer to enforce PMC.
Let me explain this. We recently hired a full-time zoning officer. And our full-time zoning officer also, from time to time, enforces some zoning code issues that give us more strength if it's enforced by the property maintenance code, which is a building code. So per our attorney's advice, in order to make it proper and legal that she enforce the property maintenance code as well, we are appointing her as a code official with the authority to enforce the International Property Maintenance Code. She will not be the building official. She would just be able to enforce the property maintenance code in regards to zoning issues.
And that's a zoning responsibility.
Correct.
I move we approve resolution 9.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, I'm in favor. The motion passes, adopting Resolution 2014-9. We have, we created a Trails and Sidewalks Committee. We need to make that title a little clearer. And it was last month, I believe, or a month before. And we've been putting together a committee roster. And at this point, we have 3 names to propose: Carol Yetter, Mike Bontrager, and Sequoia Rock. I believe Sequoia is here. Indeed. And I'm glad to see you. Shall we have a motion to appoint these 3?
I'm not familiar with their qualifications, Heather, so I don't feel qualified to make that motion.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the individuals, or at least their roles. I haven't met Sequoia before, but I know he works with TLC. And so I'd be willing to make a motion to appoint these 3.
All right, please do.
I so move. Sorry. Okay.
Are you willing to second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Discussion?
Having gone that far, is there any discussion?
Yes. I think it's great, the slate of candidates you have here. I don't know everyone personally, but Mike Bontrager, I do, and I'm glad to see that he would be a candidate for this. I also know he's a resident of the borough, not the township. Is his qualification based on his involvement with Chatham?
Yeah,
Or is there no requirement that a person on such a board has to be a resident?
Let me explain how the committee works. There's 5 people. 2 can be non-residents, 3 have to be residents.
I know.
1 can be a Trails Alliance.
Okay, now I do recall that. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't
Committee
making a mistake on Will.
No.
Okay.
Mike,
It's
so
perfectly all
Mike,
right to ask the question.
right, so Mike Bontrager's representing the Trails Alliance on this committee.
Perfect.
Sequoia is one of the other non-residents. Then Carol's a resident, and we're still looking for another resident, and another person has to be a planning commission member. We're trying to come up with who that member will be.
I hope these 3 can help find some of those people they'd like to work with. That'd
Well,
be
it's
great.
the issue she's raising particularly is the planning commission.
We need a person from the planning commission.
You haven't,
Well, the problem is, 6 out of 9 people are on other committees. So we have 3 that are not on other committees, and none of those 3 want to serve on another committee. So we're still searching for a person.
Okay.
We're trying to figure it out.
We can wait for Bob and let him do it.
Wait, that's the
Right.
5th or your 7th committee?
I was already given the opportunity to
Thank you.
serve on
Thank
2.
you, take care.
So we will be looking for another resident, non-planning commission, and then we need to figure out the planning commission person.
We'll talk privately. I'll try to help you lobby those 3.
Yes, I keep running into Rudy different places, and every time I keep asking if he's changed his mind, and he still
He
hasn't.
won't.
At
So,
least 2, so. But, yeah, and we have room for 1 more resident, but there's 5 members, getting 3 will get them started.
Yeah.
right.
That'll be a quorum.
Mhm.
Good
Are you
deal.
familiar with any other planning commission members that would be interested in trails and sidewalks?
Other than Matt,
Matt expressed interest to me when I
he's on the
spoke to him.
environmental committee,
He's on
so,
the EAC, yeah.
I mean, that would be a natural in my mind, and I don't think either one are going to overtax him time-wise, so it's a personal decision for him to make.
Matt would be a great person for that, because I recently found out that the EAC is working on their own to discuss trails.
See, there you
So
go.
I had to say, time out, let's talk about this, because Dave and I are actively working on trails, policies and everything with TLC and the Trails Alliance. So now we're going to get everybody together, including the EAC, Matt, to discuss the trails and the future of the trails. And so Matt would be the perfect person. Matt's already on 2 committees, so.
I move we waive that requirement from that.
The other person might be Wendy.
Yeah.
How about
Wendy.
I
Wendy?
have a
Wendy
motion on
said
the
no.
floor already.
Yeah.
We have a motion.
Oh,
on the floor
yeah, another
already.
motion.
Yeah, go ahead and finish your job.
Yeah, I mean, he could also sort of be the EAC member almost.
There's
You
an
could do
idea.
it that way.
Representative. I
And
mean,
that
we'd
would
have
be
to
great.
change our resolution or something, their
If
resolution.
the resolution reads that one must be a planning commission
Yeah, it
member,
does.
Right.
and you're considering not appointing a planning commission
No,
member.
he's a
No,
planning
this is-
commission.
Oh, well then what do we have to change?
Oh, you're right, nothing.
Well, let me confirm with Matt first.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah, you-
Matt just told me.
Matt would be so,
Hi, Matt, you've been appointed.
Well, yeah.
Right.
very effective person.
I will speak to Matt
It was
Yeah.
the,
tonight and see what he does.
All right.
if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
The thing is, he's going to be involved with the process as part of the EAC, so it's
Anyway.
kind of,
So we may just not want to name names in the minutes.
He's a
We don't want to
liaison.
put pressure on him.
He's a liaison.
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
he could be just a liaison type role. Doesn't matter, once he goes to the meetings.
But I am hopeful,
I don't
that
know.
the focus is not just on trails. And-
Sidewalks.
And I'm sure residents know that trails are a high priority in my mind. And I've talked about trails in relation to easements from the very first meeting. But I also have talked about sidewalks. And I think that we really need to be thinking about sidewalks. And everybody I'm seeing here and hearing about is kind of trails, I think. So I just hope that we don't get too sidewalks.
Sidetrack.
Sidetracked to trails only.
Well, with the planning commission focusing in the comprehensive plan on how we would coordinate with the borough, it's all the more important that the sidewalks be,
That's part of it.
not only part of it, but really might even be more of the focus at some times, that's all.
Yeah, there are different parts of the township that lend themselves to different solutions. So the northern part of the township, which is perhaps more developed and closer to the borough, sidewalks are an appropriate thing. You wouldn't want to put sidewalk in preserved lands in the southern part. Trails would be appropriate there. So both of them are important.
You have to call them pedestrian access.
Yeah.
Or multi-use access,
Well,
as opposed to using the term trail.
Mhm.
Well,
Just change it up a little.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any further discussion? All right, then I'll ask for the vote for the appointment of Trails and Sidewalks Committee members, Carol Yetter, Mike Bontrager, and Sequoia Rock. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I as well, so...
You're official.
Passes. Congratulations. You're the first to know.
Yeah.
It'll be a fall.
Then we get on Facebook.
So you can be the chair.
What's that?
You can be the chair.
Okay.
Congratulations, Sequoia.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And having gone through that process, we have a similar process for the appointment of members to the Historic Commission. And we have 3 names, Judy Merhar, Bob Merhar, and Jim Jacoby.
Yes. They have been serving for quite a long time as non-appointed members to the Historic
Is that
Commission.
what the associate
Yeah.
member?
They weren't even associate, they were just,
Oh, they went there.
they've just been serving and they just haven't been
And
appointed.
the commission has recommended these people,
Right.
which is important.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so,
I move we appoint them.
I'll second the motion.
Good. Is there any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
As well as I am, so the motion passes. Good. That's,
We've almost run out of public.
Yeah, any public comments?
we can go home before it gets dark.
Sunset.
Why me?
are there,
I think
Is
they
there-
said
I'm
no.
in trouble.
no public,
Smile.
no
They all
public
said
Say with
conversation?
one card.
I
Oh,
was,
wait.
Yeah, let's formally ask for it.
I'm here also to sort of take any questions or concerns regarding the Chandler Mill Bridge for Gwen Lacey. It didn't seem like anybody here had them. My only recommendation was that there are a few dates to meet her and some other members of the consortium for a few land walks, if you do have questions. Then I have those dates, if anybody's interested.
You can get those dates that we,
Keep the times.
Yeah.
put them in the minutes.
Are those the dates that Gwen emailed us all?
Yes, I believe
Yeah,
so.
so we do have those dates, but I can put them in the minutes.
I had done the walk, it's a nice walk, it's actually educational and fun,
It's a nice walk.
not too taxing, it's relatively flat.
Is there anything else that you wanted to?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you
Just
for
so you
sharing
know,
this.
our LCAC committee and our safety committee have agreed to coordinate a date, and they're going to walk the site,
Okay, great.
so.
Excellent.
Anybody else have anything they want to bring up?
You're ready, Chaz.
And Bob's never been shy.
All right.
Okay, anything else from the board?
No.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
You're here.
Thank you.
I don't know, if we compare this meeting to the planning commission meeting.
It's flip-flop.
Oh, my gosh. Tom was here for that.
Oh,
Dave-
sorry to hear.
Dave, missed that. Yeah.
You